Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Start with the name of Allah, God Almighty, seeking His help, His blessings, and His protection. We praise Him for He is the Lord of everything in existence. And we ask Him to bless the Messenger. Allahumma allimna ma yanfa'una wa anfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna ilma. We ask you, Allah, to teach us what benefits us and to allow us to benefit from the things that we learn and to increase us in knowledge. So we're continuing with our series, Prophetic Stories, Illustrations of Life. And today, the story is going to take another turn where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam here now is in his very first years of being in Medina. So he's still relatively new in the new city after he migrates. And one of his traditions, and we said this is one of the successful methods of leadership, is for him to check on his community, to check in on people and to find out how they're doing. So basically, on this particular day, he was riding on his animal, on his mount, and it happens to be a donkey. And the scholars, when they look at this thing, they actually bring out something interesting, the fact that the messenger was very humble. So kings are known not to ride on such animals. It's not appropriate for them. But he rode whatever was available for him, and he did not distinguish, and he did not care what mode of transport he was riding on. And he had behind him his beloved grandson through adoption, which is Usama ibn Zayd. So Zayd is this adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ, and he's one of the very first Muslims, in fact, from outside the biological family of the Prophet. And this is his son Usama. So he had him behind him on the donkey, and he went to visit the family of Bani Harith. Specifically, he had someone in mind, which is Sa'd ibn Ubadah, who's the leader of the tribe called Al-Khazraj. So Sa'd, of course, is somebody who's very special to the Prophet ﷺ, because when he first arrived in Medina, he made great accommodations for him. And he wanted to visit him in his house specifically. Now, on the way, he passes by a gathering of people where they were mixed. There were some Muslims and some pagans, which is the makeup of the city. The makeup of the city of Medina was mixed. They weren't all one faith. They were pagans, and they were Jews, and they were Muslims. And among them is a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Now, this is a very famous individual or infamous, let's say, for many different reasons. But this is a moment before he had embraced Islam. So again, very early days that the Prophet is in Medina. We mentioned this man before. He was actually hoping to be crowned king of Medina, because all the chiefs and the leaders had been wiped out through a civil war. They had a lot of unrest prior to the Muslims migrating there. And he was very hopeful, and he had the ambition of leading that city. There was also Abdullah ibn Rawaha, may Allah be pleased with him, who's one of the early Muslims. So when the Prophet saw them, although he was going to a different direction, he decides to take a detour and to stop by them. Again, something very considerate of him. Although he has something else in mind, he wanted to go and check in on them. Now, when he gets close, naturally, the roads are not paved. And we always have to mention things like that, because sometimes we can't even think about what the situation in the time of the Prophet was. We always project our norms to what they had. So it's a dirt road. In fact, you're in the desert, so it's not really even dirt. So when the donkey is walking by, dust starts going up in the air. And you can't really control dust when it goes up in the air. So it goes on the faces of these people, basically. So Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul immediately covers his nose up and is visibly uncomfortable and visibly offended that how could you do this and basically mess up our gathering. And then he says out loud, this is another thing, so we're going to see how many offenses take place here. He says, why are you guys messing around with this dust all over us? Why are you causing this dust to be all around? And then he says, I swear to God, the smell of your donkey has bothered me. So donkeys have a particular smell. They're not pretty animals. They're not elegant like horses. They usually eat trash. So whatever you're going to eat and consume, it's going to come out on your body. So he says, your donkey's smell has bothered me. Now, this, of course, is extremely rude, very inconsiderate, because the typical etiquette in Arabia and anywhere is when someone is coming to visit you, you go out and you greet them. You go out of your way to welcome them and to show them some hospitality. This has nothing to do with Islam. This just has to do with common sense and also social etiquette. But what he did was do the opposite. He looked extremely bothered, and he turned away, and he covered his face, and he said these rude words and rude statements. The Prophet ﷺ didn't even look at that. Now this is very key. Many of us, we get stuck whenever somebody offends us or says something inappropriate. We can't let it go. In fact, it may go on for days, and we're just stuck. What happened, brother? Man, 2 days ago, somebody looked at me the wrong way. Yesterday, I learned a new word. We used to say when somebody's frowning at you or looking at you in a negative way, we say mad dogging. So apparently there is a new word. They say he's giving him stinky eye. Is that what they say? Stinky eye. Right? And you can't get over it. The fact that someone looked at you in a negative light. You just can't get over it. The Prophet ﷺ here completely overlooks what took place. And he didn't even want to address it. He didn't want to deal with it. He didn't think it's significant enough to do that. Rather, what he did was he initiated greeting them. He greeted them with the greeting of Islam. And then he sits down, he gets off of his mount, he sits down and he starts inviting them to God, because that's his mission. His mission is not to get distracted by these little things that people bring up. He starts inviting them to God, recites some Quran upon them. And then Abdullah ibn Ubay, he just heard the statements of the Quran and heard what the messenger was calling to. So basically, he could not doubt the truth of these things. Because remember now, he spoke the same language as revelation. So they didn't have an issue understanding it properly. They understood exactly what was said. And he's not gonna debate it, and he's not gonna refute it. Rather, he decided to do something else to cause trouble. And what he said, look man, this is straight how he spoke to him. He didn't say Muhammad, he didn't say Abu al-Qasim, he didn't use any of these titles. He says, Ya ayyuha al-mar'u innahu la ahsana mimma taqul. He says, hey you buddy, there's nothing better than what you're saying. In kana haqqan, if it is the truth. فَلَا تُؤْذِنَا بِهِ فِي مَجْلِسِنَا. Don't bother us with this stuff while we're sitting and gathering. It's good if it's the truth, but don't bring it over here. ارجع إلى منزلك فمن جاءك فاقصص عليه. Go back to your house, and whoever visits you, you get to tell him whatever you want to tell him. Extremely rude, right? Now he didn't say it in a rude way. He says, look, you're saying some beautiful things, guy, but you know, we ain't got the time for this. And if somebody's interested in entertaining what you have to say, they'll come and visit you. Why don't you go back home? Now, again, this is not proper etiquette. This is extremely rude. And this is also doubting the truthfulness of the most truthful person. One of the titles of the Messenger ﷺ is As-Sadiq Al-Masduq. As-Sadiq means the one that says the truth. Al-Masduq is the one that his truth is attested by a higher being, like by Allah. Because Allah attests to the truth of His Messenger. So Abdullah ibn Rawaha, the Muslim that's in that gathering, got extremely offended. And he went to the Messenger of God and he says, O Messenger of God, please come over to our gatherings and tell us what you have. The opposite type of reception. He says, because we love what you have to say. بَلَا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ فَغْشِنَا بِهِ فِي مَجَالِسِنَا فَإِنَّا نُحِبُّ ذَلِكَ. We love what you have to say. Please continue coming over and visiting us and sharing this stuff with us. Then another man from the Muslims, from the Ansar, the sponsors, the local residents of Medina, he says, Wallahi lahimaru Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam atyabu rihan mink. He says, I swear to God that the donkey of the Messenger of God, his smell is better than your smell. His scent is better than yours. Now that's a low blow, right? Because what did the guy say? He says, I was offended by the nasty smell of your donkey. He says, well, that smell is more pure and more beautiful than yours. Now they started going back and forth now. Things got heated and they started actually going at it and abusing each other physically. Then, now this was, again, we said it's a mixed gathering. So you got Muslims, pagans, and Jews, and now they're going at it. And then they started actually getting physical with each other. So this it became an altercation. Then the Messenger ﷺ was cooling them down and tried to reconcile among them until they calmed down and things were settled. Then the Messenger of God got back up on his donkey and he went to Sa'd ibn Ubadah, which is his original intention. He went and visited Sa'd and he reported back to him what took place. Now, although he's the Messenger of God, this is something very important for us, is go back and talk to people who have more experience with the situation. I mentioned my brother before and some of his things at work, so I'm going to mention another story that I heard yesterday. He just got placed in a particular project, and the project manager feels offended that my brother has to check his work. So my brother had a meeting with him personally a couple of days ago, and he told him, do you have a problem with me? Is there anything wrong? He says, no, there's nothing wrong. Of course, all the signs say there's something majorly wrong. He's like, because if you have a problem, I didn't want to be here. I was placed here by your boss and my boss. And I'm here as a resource to help you out. If you need me, utilize me. And the guy's like, I don't need anything. Thank you very much. Now, they're delayed in the project and they actually need all the help they can get. Point of the story here, my brother went back and reported the whole story back to the boss. Now you can say, we're grown adults, we can figure things out on our own. You have something at stake. This is a company and you're getting paid for your time and you're going to be fined if you're late in your project. So you have to report back. The Messenger of God, he didn't think, well, I'm too proud. Why should I report back to Sa'd ibn Ubadah? He didn't think that way. He says, you know what, I'm going to go and report back to him because he's one of the leaders of the locals in Medina. He's one of the leaders of Khazraj. Just like Abdullah ibn Ubay. So that's very interesting dynamic. Abdullah ibn Ubay is from the same tribe of this man, Sa'd ibn Ubadah. And then the Messenger of God says, Ya Sa'du, alam tasma' ma qala Abu Hubab. That was his nickname. Did you not hear what Abu Hubab says? He says so and so. And he basically relates to him the story. So then Sa'd ibn Ubadah says, Ya Rasulallahi, u'fu anhu wasfah. O Messenger of God, please pardon him and forgive him. فوالذي أنزل عليك الكتاب لقد جاء الله بالحق الذي أنزل عليك. He says, I swear by the one that brought the truth. Allah has brought the truth in what He sent to you. وَلَقَدْ اصْطَلَحَ أَهْلُ هَذِهِ الْبَلْدَةِ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يُتَوِّجُوهُ فَيُعَصِّبُونَهُ بِالْعِصَابَةِ. He says, the people that of this city, meaning of Medina, it was called Yathrib before the Prophet migrated to it. They had actually reconciled among each other and they made up because the two major tribes were killing each other. So then they came together and they agreed to appoint this man a chief over them. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَنَا اللَّهُ بِكَ وَإِنَّ لَا نَنظُمُ لَهُ الْخَرَزَ لِنُتَوِّجَهُ. He says, when you came to us, we were actually getting prepared to crown him upon us. فَلَمَّا أَبَى اللَّهُ ذَلِكَ بِالْحَقِّ الَّذِي أَعْطَاكَ شَرِقَ بِذَلِكَ فَلِذَلِكَ فَعَلَ مَا رَأَيْتَ. He says, but when Allah brought forth the truth with you, He got very offended and upset. So that's why He's saying these foul things. So what is Sa'd ibn Ubadah doing here? Informing the Messenger of the reality on the ground. So now, I'm going to take back the story to what I just mentioned about that job site. My brother's boss actually told him, look, this guy has issues, but I'm going to send you there because we need your help. I'm not sending you there so you guys can compete and have a problem. So that's very important. But that happens when you report back. So the guy appreciated reporting back and he says, look, I'm going to tell you the reality that you're not aware of. Then the Messenger of God, of course, forgave that situation and pardoned it and basically just turned a page on it. Now something happens later on. The Battle of Badr soon thereafter takes place in the second year after the migration. And then the Messenger of God actually was victorious along with his army. And the major pagan leaders were killed in that battle. They were casualties of war. Although Abdullah ibn Ubay was hoping that they were going to win. He lives in the city of Medina, but his allegiance and his loyalty is to the enemies of the Prophet. So then when the messenger won, he realized, look, man, there's no hope for me to become leader here anymore. So what am I going to do? So he says to the other pagans, he says, this thing is settled. Meaning, Muhammad's affair now is settled here. He is permanent. We're not going to do anything about it. So then the pagans and Abdullah ibn Ubay actually went and embraced the faith and gave their pledge of allegiance to the Messenger of God. And they pretended to have embraced Islam. When did they do that? When they realized that the Muslims have the upper hand. And that's typically whenever hypocrisy actually shows up. Hypocrisy doesn't typically show up in a time of weakness. It shows up in a time of strength. So when the Muslims had the upper hand and they realized Muhammad is actually the leader of this city and everybody is accepting him, they're like, you know what, if you can't beat him, join them. But that doesn't mean they actually join them full-heartedly. It doesn't mean they join them with sincerity and being truthful. So they actually still had a lot of hatred inside their hearts, and they still had a lot of the diseases in their hearts. But they externally embrace Islam, and in our tradition, if somebody tells us something, we accept it from them. We don't know what's in people's hearts. And not all of them remained in this state of hypocrisy. Many of them actually fixed themselves up. So you never know. Don't give up hope on people and say, and you know, I don't know about this person. They actually came to Islam or they came to the mosque, but maybe they have some ulterior motives. That's none of your business. They can have ulterior motives. Well, they came so they can get some of the zakah funds. Okay. That was one of the methods that the Prophet brought people to Islam through. He gave them gifts. You want money? Here, money. They just wanted food. What's the problem with that? Well, we don't know if they're actually sincere. Are you God? Are you their judge? No, you're not. So we have to actually help ourselves and put ourselves out of that judgment box where we're looking into people and trying to see what's in their hearts. So basically, this is the story. What's the title of today? The title of today's lecture is actually The King. And who is the king that we're talking about? This man, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, who felt so close. Basically, this is like right before he gets inaugurated to be leader of the city. Plans change. And he basically, the carpet is taken from below him. So a few of the lessons that we can extract from this. Number one, the fact that imagine the Messenger of God visiting and walking or riding in this particular gathering that's mixed. Again, it's not all his people. There is pagans, there is Jews, and there is Muslims. He did not prohibit the Muslims from taking part in that gathering. He did not say, why are you guys sitting with those people? Because in real life, you're going to contact others. The issue is not to be in contact with them and to deal with them and to work with them and to engage with them. The issue is to be influenced by them and to compromise your own principles. And then, although he saw the aftermath of what took place, things got heated, there was arguments, people even got physical, the Messenger of God still did not tell the Muslims, how dare you guys still sit here after what took place? He just let them be. That's extremely important. Now, most people, I'm just going to give an example. Let's say this happens among our families, because none of us are messengers of God, and we're not necessarily going and preaching the message to anyone. Family. You go with your family to somebody's house, and this is typical with family gatherings, and some type of altercation happens. Now, the father is the leader of the family, and he feels offended after the altercation. What is his reaction? Not only does he leave, he says, my family is going to leave as well, and we're never going to talk to you guys ever again. And those are the same family, same religion, same community, but with small problems, They decide to sever ties. Compare that to what the messenger just went through. His personal integrity was attacked. He was cursed here, disrespected, although you can say it's an undercover disrespect. It wasn't blatant. But he didn't expect his community to actually do anything about that at that moment. There is a time and a place. But here he didn't think it was appropriate. Because whenever he makes a decision, it's very measured. You have to plan things out and you have to be strategic. How do I address these things? Is this a battle worth fighting? He was relatively new in the city. People don't realize that, by the way. They think they want to practice Islam and they take a text here and they're like, well, this is what the text says. This text is in place with the context of 13 years after the Prophet migrates. 13 years after the message started. This is not how he behaved in Mecca. Or others will take a text about a particular teaching in Islam and say, this is how it's supposed to be and there is no compromise. True, this is how it's supposed to be, but in due time. What the Prophet implemented in Medina 10 years after the migration is not what he did when he first arrived in Medina. He was still trying to win people's hearts over. He's relatively new. And we just realized in the story that there was someone else that was competing for the spot of leadership in the city. The Prophet didn't necessarily know all those details. He knew, look, these people, a lot of their elders had been wiped out. And this happened, by the way, in Bay'atul Aqaba. When the people of Medina came over, the Prophet took his uncle Al-Abbas. Al-Abbas was not a Muslim at the time. And the Prophet would go and visit different tribes and he was simply seeking asylum. He's like, I just want somebody to give me an opportunity to preach my message. God has given me a message. I just want to be safe to preach it. Who would give me that? Who would offer me that? And he met with these people from the city called Yathrib and they were all young people. So Al-Abbas comes to the Prophet and says, my nephew. But they were like close in age. So he says, my nephew, but in reality he's like brothers. And in fact, they were brothers through nursing. He says, I don't recognize any of these faces. I'm afraid that these people give you their word, but they can't back it up because they're children, basically. Right? Like you expect, politicians typically are what? Have you seen the average age on politicians, like people in the Senate and the House of Representatives? These people should retire already. They're all old, right? So let's say you have like a teenager or someone like straight out of college and really active and really, strong and well-mannered, and they're saying, I'm the new mayor of Rancho. And like, what? We've never seen a mayor your age. So Al-Abbas was taken aback and he's like, I don't know if this is even safe for you to leave your city. Although the Meccans are persecuting you, but going to the unknown is something dangerous, right? So the Prophet was already aware there's a lot of young people here in Medina now. There aren't many elders because the elders were wiped out. But there is more dynamic that is to unfold itself in front of his very eyes. So the messenger left the people alone. And the point here is to teach us a lesson. Human interaction is extremely important in building community. The Prophet wasn't going there to take over the city. He was going there to build community. Taking over the city, you just drive everybody else out. Right now, the people who have the rhetoric of make America great again, what are they doing practically? Making minorities feel like they don't belong here. Right? Building a wall, putting people in migration detention centers. There is a lot of racism. People are blatantly saying things that are extremely unacceptable. That's not building community. That's basically building friction, and people are going to continue to fight and hate each other. The messenger didn't come to Medina to say, you know what? Yeah, we got to split people up. You guys are the Jews in the Jewish quarter. You guys are pagans in the pagan quarter. He let them be natural, and this is the way you win people's hearts. This is the way you achieve success as a community. Also, something also very important is that a Muslim, just like these early Muslims, should be confident in their own faith. Now, unfortunately, this is where we lack. Many of us are not even confident in our faith. So when we spend time with other people, we get influenced negatively by default. We're not the influencers. We're not the trailblazers. We're not the leaders. We're followers. This is something very scary. I tell my children, we homeschool now, but we're considering them going to an Islamic school. Now, when they go to Islamic school, the children there are not perfect. You're going to have all different types of families, right? But now, if you're not a leader, what are you going to do when you go to school? Or you go to any environment? You're going to copy others. Now, We need to become leaders where we don't copy others. Rather, we are a positive influence on others. And if you want to copy others, only copy good things. So that's the key here. And this is what the messenger saw. That he taught them to be confident in what they have and to know the truth and to live by it. And even if they were to sit with people that are different than them, no problem. Some of our teachers, they say, you know what, I don't care who the person is, I'll sit with him. Because he felt confident to actually reach out to that person. People who tell you, no, I can't sit with so-and-so. Why can't you sit with them? What is it? Is it them or you? No, they're weird. Okay, they're weird. So what about you? Well, I'm not weird. Well, why don't you influence them in a positive way? Now, of course, there are some people that you should definitely stay away from because it's trouble. But we're talking about, generally speaking, reaching out to people is extremely important. The Prophet's method was never to have people segregate themselves completely and to be away. Rather, that was actually the pagan methodology. In order for them to address Islam, they said, don't you ever listen to Muhammad. Don't talk to him. And that's what you hear right now. The divides that we have in our society is, don't sit with these Muslims. You'll have an open house, and some people in church, they'll tell them, make sure you don't go to that mosque. Because they're going to do what? They're going to do magic on you. You're going to come back a different person. What is happening here? Nothing. But it's called scare tactics. Don't go there because they may influence you in a negative way. That's because the people themselves have lack of confidence. They don't know that they are on the truth. They're actually doubting it. So they're afraid of exposing themselves. What they would say is, لا تسمعوا لهذا القرآن والغوا فيه. Do not even listen to this Quran, this recitation that's being said. Rather, argue with it. Rather, while it's taking place, try to have side conversations. Abdullah ibn Ubay, what he says is, go back to your place, and whoever visits you, you can talk to them. Now, this is important. Unfortunately, most of our teaching take place in our places. We don't go out to people. But look how many people are here. Not even in our own community does everybody show up. The Prophet's method was to go to people and to visit them and to share with them, whether they're from the Muslim community or outside of the Muslim community. The only people who come are those who are already interested. Meaning, I already put time aside and I actually intentionally want to do Maghrib and I want to do Isha and I want to sit in between. And inshallah, I'll get some benefit. But the majority of the people don't have that. So you have to find ways to go to them on their own terms. When it's what? When it's suitable for them. When it's something that they can actually listen to you in. Don't go to people when they're busy trying to go to work. Hey, I need to give you something extremely important. Right now, the most important thing for that person is going to work. It's not what you have to say. So it has to do with wisdom. Know the time and the place. But the way of the hypocrites was to say, you sit in your place, and this is where you see how liberalism affects and influences the religion negatively. Liberalism says, religion should stay in the houses of worship, and whoever wants to talk about religion, go to the mosque and talk. You want to talk about God? Go to church. God should not be in the public space. That's what we have right now. Anyone who mentions God, how dare you? You're mentioning God. You're encroaching on my privacy, on my freedom of expression. Okay, how about the flip side? When you don't mention God, aren't you encroaching on my freedom of expression? Why is it only good for you to do what you want to do, and I can't do what I want to do? Why are your values positive and my values negative? Why are you being judgmental? Always bring that up, by the way. The people who say, don't judge me. Why are you judging me? So they say, don't judge me. You think I'm not religious. You're judging me thinking I'm religious. Who told you I'm religious? Well, you look like it. Oh my God, here we go. That's what judgment is. And what do you look like? You look like you're not religious. Who says that? Like there is no yardstick to measure religiosity. This is not like oil in your car. You take it, what is that thing called? You take it out. Okay, you got this much Islam in you. Okay, you have a pass. You're full. Or you need to go get a... We don't know that. So anyway, the pagans were afraid of even listening to what the messenger has to say. And they were afraid of mixing with the Muslims. So what they did was basically close themselves off. And that's why whenever the Sahaba were very new to Islam, They were extremely comfortable mixing with others. And the point behind that was so Islam would spread in society. And then also they can have a greater impact on the community that they are in. And to ensure that these fake borders and fake walls that are built in society are naturally removed. That happens when you're able to visit people and exchange life and human experiences. Eating together, visiting each other, just checking on each other, going and visiting someone who's sick, visiting your neighbor, and so forth. So now, the author here says, he's like, although right now the world is so open due to social media and we can find out things that are happening in the furthest corners of the earth, a lot of people are actually so closed, and they basically close themselves in and they put walls around them. And they don't allow anyone to see the light that they have. They don't allow anyone to do that. As if they're basically surrounded by a glass wall and they're afraid that it's very fragile and it may break at any moment. So again, the believer should be confident in what they have. But this is a call for all of us to actually gain confidence. It's true, many of us are not confident, and that's not a problem if we can admit to it. It's not a problem if we admit, you know what, I don't know my religion. Okay, the solution is not for you to stay away from mixing with people. The solution is for you to do what? Learn it. Put some time in, invest some time in, so when people engage you in conversation, you're able to address their concerns. The second lesson here is the messenger's lofty character and mannerisms. Now, when Abdullah ibn Ubay tells him, hey buddy, ayyuha al-mar, so-and-so, like he didn't even address him by his name. How did the messenger talk about this guy in his absence? Key reaction. He could have said, this jerk out there, he said my donkey is stinky. He says, did you not hear what Abu Hubab says? Abu Hubab is the guy's official nickname, a name that is beloved to him. He didn't call him a derogatory term. He didn't use any slur. He didn't call him out, even in his absence. We already know how he reacted in person. In person, he just didn't address it. He pardoned it. But even now when he's reporting to Sa'd ibn Ubadah, he was still careful in how he addressed it. And that's very key. How can we control our emotions? A lot of times when we vent, we lose all what? Filters. Somebody comes to me, they're like, I said, you'd like to talk? Yeah, I'd like to talk. They start venting. And the words that come out of their mouth, I'm like, what happened? It's like a gutter. I'm like, why are you doing all of this? I'm venting. Venting does not mean you lose control. Vent to me. Tell me, this person misbehaved. But why do you have to say, this mother effer, son of a gun, or son of something else, did this? And like, how did that happen? Why? Is this the person's name? No, it's not. Are they the son of such a? No, they're not. So why are you saying these things? Because we lose filters. The Prophet ﷺ teaches us that even when things frustrate you, control yourself and speak about people properly, even if they did something wrong. Now, when they fought, the Muslims and the pagans fought, the Prophet ﷺ did not take part. He didn't play tribe politics, identity politics. This is very important. You know what happens right now? Let's say we have a Muslim who does something wrong in society just because they are visibly Muslim. What is our reaction? What should it be? We shouldn't take their side just because of the fact that they have something in common with us. I'll give a political example. Somebody aligns with us politically and gets in a debate or in an argument. Do we join on their side regardless of what the argument is? Just because he's part of our political party? That's a lot of times exactly what happens. So the Prophet, he recognizes the whole fight is over him. That's what they're fighting about. A group was defending him and another group was disrespecting him. But he did not take sides. Rather, what did he do? He was a neutral person who tried to mediate and slow them down and bring them back down. So the Prophet ﷺ teaches us here that I'm not going to engage this ignorance and I'm not going to go that low. No matter how much you guys are trying to trigger me and to try to cause problems and friction in society, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for a higher mission. And again, this is something key. Most people right now, Muslims, the biggest thing on their minds is Islamophobia. Islamophobia is not a problem. Don't get distracted. You have a mission of sharing truth with people and being upright. But we are getting involved in identity politics and playing a game that we don't know the rules to. And whenever you play a game you don't know the rules to, are you going to be a winner in the end of the day? If I throw you right now in a competition and I say, go ahead, compete, and I may cheer you on and possibly give you a grant. Say, you know what? I'm going to give you some money. This is for you to prepare to. And these people on the other side in the competition, they've been in this game for 200 years. They know how to lobby and they know how to play the game. And for them, there is ends justify the means, a Machiavellian concept that we don't have. We don't have the ends justify the means. For us, the ends must be noble and the means towards the ends must be noble too. The ends must be lawful and the means towards the ends must be lawful. We don't say, well, in order for us to build a mosque, we have to steal a plot of land. We don't do that. We say the mosque shouldn't even exist if that's the only way. But the mosque is noble. We need to get the mosque through noble methods. Again, the messenger here did not allow anything to ruin his mission, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's why whenever they actually tried to ignite any type of social unrest, he would calm it down through his wisdom. That requires a lot of wisdom. Same thing at home. You know, some people, you notice that they say things simply to get under your skin. At work, some people just do things to get under your skin. How are we reacting? Do we react to it in a way that we may regret later on? Or are we able to contain ourselves and be wiser? The next lesson. Sa'ad ibn Ubadah, may Allah be pleased with him, he actually gave a great diagnosis of the condition of Abdullah ibn Ubay. He was very precise. It was very detailed because he had long experience. And he says, this has nothing to do with the difference of opinion that he has with you or the fact that he's not convinced with your argument. Rather, it is jealousy and envy. And this is what people don't get. Many bullies, the reason they bully, I remember, I think a lot of parents say this, but sometimes I don't know how true it is, but when people bully you and you come back home complaining to your parents, a lot of parents say the reason they're bullying you, how do they actually comfort you? What do they tell you? They say they're jealous of you. Sometimes the person who gets bullied would be what? The pretty person. The most pretty person gets bullied sometimes. It's not their fault. God made them pretty. But they go and they pick on them. Sometimes it's the smart student. And they're like, oh, you're close to the teacher, and they start picking a fight over something that should not be a fight. It's not an issue of contention. So likewise, Abdullah ibn Ubay's beef with Muhammad was not over disagreement on Islam. And many of the enemies, that's not their disagreement. They don't disagree that Islam is correct. Allah says, حَسَدًا مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Rather, it is envy and jealousy that is deeply embedded in their hearts. That's all it is. They don't want to see somebody else succeed. We'll take it all the way back. As soon as Muhammad actually got the ministry and got the mission, some people were not happy because he was not from their family. This happened among the Arabs, but also happened with other people, the other Semitic group. They're like, he's not from the children of Isaac. He's not from the children of Jacob. He's not an Israelite, so we're not going to believe in him. Is what he's saying true? Of course it's true. But he's not from the same bloodline. حَسَدًا مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah describes that. So always remember that when you deal with people who have beef with you, you're like, well, I'm trying to make sense of our argument. You're not going to make sense. It's something deeply rooted in the person's heart. They're not going to make up with you. You need to get out of certain circumstances. You need to get out of these relationships. Because there's no way for you to actually advance. There's no way for you to reconcile. So he realizes that what the messenger brought, the truth that Muhammad brought, has actually removed his own leadership, which he was seeking and he was looking for. This was his greatest ambition. And again, whenever somebody takes your ambition, you basically can never forgive them. You're going to hate them for a lifetime. Is it warranted? No, it's not. But it's something that is within the human being. If they're not able to control that hasad, it will burn them. So the scholars say every human being has hasad in them. They have envy and jealousy. The righteous person is the one who's able to keep it under control. But everyone has it. Don't say, I don't, man, no, my heart is clean. My heart is crystal clear. I don't hold these feelings towards others. Oh yeah? Yeah. Hopefully. So, when the messenger here basically came to Medina, and he's receiving revelation, and he's the prophet, and although this man had leadership qualities in his city, he was a chief, he was a bit older than the other folks, but he started hating the messenger, and he started hating the ministry itself, and basically he decided, I'm going to undermine this in any way possible. And then when he realized, look, these things are settled, it seems like he's here to stay, he decides to change his strategy. And that's very important, by the way. That's what people who don't know the game of politics don't realize. People will change their strategy to win you over. But the game is still the same. They say it's the same game with different players. But most people don't realize that. They think the game has changed. The game of the enemies of the messengers has always been the same, to undermine the messengers, but they use different strategies. They always plan and plot. They have think tanks. Okay, we're going to come to them this way. If this doesn't work, we have a plan B. They got plans with the alphabet and some. But unfortunately, a lot of people are naive on the other side. They only have one game plan. If that game plan doesn't work, what's going to happen? No backup plan. So basically, you are setting yourself up for failure. We ask Allah to guide us to be more like the Prophet ﷺ. So now, when Abdullah ibn Ubay changed his strategy, he decides to now show enmity against the Muslims in a different way, to fight them from within, not as an outsider, rather to fight them from within. And he became basically the chief of the hypocrites. We ask Allah to protect us from hypocrisy. The worst enmity that the Messenger of God faced in his lifetime was actually this cancer that was within the body. It wasn't the enmity that was outside. The enmity that's outside, you already see it. When people tell you they hate you, you don't have a problem with that. But when someone is within your body, is coming to undermine you and attacking you, that's why when you have diseases related to your immune system, it's much worse than a virus that comes from outside. The virus, you can fight it, take some antibiotics. But you have an immune system disease. You can't get rid of it. You have a cancer. It's actually embedded within your body. That's why those diseases are extremely deadly. Same thing with faith communities. Enemies on the outside are actually doing you a favor. They're like, we hate your guts. But you have enemies from within that are plotting and working towards what? Undermining the actual message. We ask Allah to protect us from that. So, you have two types of enemies. You have the enemy of Abu Jahl. And the reason why his enmity was so strong is because he was from the tribe of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was family. And then you have Abdullah ibn Ubay. He was what? He joined the rank. He wasn't family. You have Huyay ibn Akhtab, which is the leader of the Jewish community that was undermining Islam. All these play different roles as far as the enmity to Islam is concerned. But which one was the most difficult on the believers? It was the hypocrites. Abu Jahl is obvious. Huyay ibn Akhtab is obvious. Abdullah ibn Ubay, the messenger would tell him, he's a Muslim. He says he's a Muslim, he's part of us. It's going to affect our image among others if we abuse them. What are people going to say? That Muhammad abuses his own community. So they were able to actually operate freely and to undermine from within. So unfortunately, a lot of these people have deep-rooted enmity and they could not get rid of it, although they knew that the truth was with the Messenger Muhammad. Number 4, you continue to have many conspiracies from this moment on. He embraces Islam externally in the 2nd year after the Hijrah. And then the third year, he actually makes a very evil move in a very sensitive time in the life of the community, which was Uhud. He basically takes 1/3 of the whole army and they retreat back to the city. And they leave the messenger and the Muslim community exposed in front of their enemies. This is like when you're going with a team and you're going to a match and 1/3 of your team leaves you. It's not even a fair fight anymore. You can't even play that game. But that's exactly what this guy did. And what he was trying to do, what he was attempting to do, is to bring down the spirits of the Muslims. And in order for their enemies to think, you know what, we have a chance to beat them. And then on the 4th year, he actually says something that Allah quotes in the Quran. لا تنفقوا على من عند رسول الله حتى ينفضوا. Don't spend your wealth on the people that are with the Messenger of God until they leave him. These are poor people. He was telling others, don't spend on these people until they leave him. If they leave him and they're no longer associated and loyal to him, then you can assist them and help them out. And this is what happens a lot of times, where people financially blackmail you. And they'll say, you know what, we'll give you some incentives, but we don't want you to take part in those activities. Don't be with the Muslims, we'll give you something in return. He also says in another occasion, these are all documented in Surah Al-Munafiqun, لَإِن رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُ. If we go back to the city of Medina, the noble and honorable ones are going to kick out the humiliated ones. And he was referring to the Messenger of God. And of course, then later on, another event takes place in the time of the Prophet. And these are like one conspiracy after the other. When the Messenger's wife, Aisha, was accused of adultery, he was actually one of the main people behind that propaganda machine. He actually was all over it. That's why a believer, whenever they hear about bad news, they should not be spreading that bad news. Never spread bad news. But unfortunately, that's what the media is all about. Don't participate in that. Don't allow filth to emanate from your mouth. In the 5th year, they started attacking the Muslims emotionally, and again, they were undermining them in the most dire of situations when the Confederates had surrounded Medina. 10,000 troops had surrounded Medina in the time of the Battle of the Confederates, Al-Ahzab. And they said, مَا وَعَدَنَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. God and His Messenger promised us illusions. They lied to us. They were saying this in the middle of the siege that Medina was under. However, the Prophet ﷺ, how did he deal with all of these things? So now again, remember, there is personal attacks, then there is attacks against the faith, then attacks against Allah, but these people are within our community. What do you do? It's very easy in our communities now. Somebody causes problems, he's a hypocrite, kick him out. He doesn't want to leave, restraining order. Right? That's the quickest solution. Unfortunately, that's what I've seen. Even if somebody was actually part of the mosque community, or maybe a past administrator, or a past imam, they never show up again. What happened? Well, we have problems. But it's still a masjid. No, I'm not going there no more. And the people there, we don't want them here no more. It shouldn't be like that. This is not proper. That's not right. So the Prophet ﷺ actually uses his wisdom, and he decides to push back, but in a way where he's able to win people's hearts over. And he's not going to cause aggression. And the more the Prophet was forgiven and the more he was pardoning, Abdullah ibn Salul would increase in his anxiety and in his hatred. He's like, man, whatever I do, it's not working. And that's what you should do to your enemies. Just treat them with extra kindness. They say, kill them with kindness, without physically killing them. They're like, I can't beat this person. Every time I try to do something wrong, this person comes with something good. That's how you're going to make an impact on people. That's why Allah says, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ ادْفَعْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Repel bad with something which is good, and it might be that the person that has enmity with you will turn into a very close associate and friend. It's not going to happen by you actually treating them bad when they treat you bad. It won't work like that. You treat them good and you teach them a lesson through your proper behavior, just like the Messenger of God did. Now, what interestingly happens is actually some of this guy's punishment was in this lifetime because he actually lived to see the Muslims gaining victory. And that just destroyed him emotionally because he was plotting for their defeat. And for him to actually witness the Muslims being victorious, it actually caused him great tribulation personally. He also saw people embracing Islam willingly in great numbers. So that was also a punishment, an emotional punishment for him. He wasn't punished physically, but Allah showed him that what you were doing is wrong in front of his very eyes. He saw Arabs from different corners of Arabia coming to Medina to give the pledge of allegiance to the Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam, following his religion, signing agreements with him, signing treaties with him. And then he saw the Messenger of God, whom he had a lot of enmity and jealousy towards, being not just the leader of the city of Medina. His ambitions was, I just want to be in charge of Medina. The Prophet was the leader of all of Arabia within a short span of time. And he started seeing with his very eyes that the major empires of the time were afraid of this man Muhammad that came as a refugee. That's a success story. You know, right now people celebrate stories of, there's this sister, I think, she came as a refugee with her family. She's in Minnesota, and right now she's serving in office. And it's definitely a beautiful story that she came from a very difficult background, but right now she's actually, a state representative, and she's actually looking towards being in the federal government. Right? So people look at that and they say, wow, a success story. Well, look at the Prophet Muhammad. Same thing. He was a refugee when he came. But he was able, the people placed him in charge of them because they realized this is the best leader we can have. And then all of Arabia gave allegiance to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, this is going to cause great pain to the one who has enmity and hatred with him. But the Prophet did not entertain him and did not go down on his level. Now check this out. This is very important and very key. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam continues to pardon Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul even after the man died. When he died, his son was actually a Muslim. His son's name is Abdullah. He came to the Messenger of God and he says, "O Messenger of God, will you please give me what you're wearing? Give me your tunic, your qamis, and let me shroud my father in it." So then the messenger, with no questions, he removed his tunic and gave it to him. And he says, "Adhinni usalli alayh." He says, announce to me when his funeral is going to be so I can go and do salah on him. So then they shrouded him in the Prophet's clothing. This is the leader of the hypocrites. They shrouded him in the Prophet's clothing. Then the Messenger of God came before the guy was about to be buried. And then he stood up to lead the funeral salah on him. And then Umar, Allah be pleased with him, jumped on to the Messenger and pulled him back. And he says, "O Messenger of God, you're going to lead his funeral service. Although he said on day so and so, such and such." He tried to remind the Messenger about some of the negative things that this guy has been saying. Right now, you try to reconcile or you try to do something good and somebody comes to you, "Don't you remember how they tweeted you? Don't you remember what they said about you?" And they never want to let go. Why don't you just let bygones be bygones? I took a screenshot of it, but they deleted it. I took a screenshot, and you keep on looking at it. Oh my God, look what they said about me. They changed. They're no longer like that. This guy never changed, but the Prophet didn't want to pay attention to these things, although he knew all about them. So Umar at that moment was repeating some of the most major offenses of this man, Abdullah ibn Ubay. Then the Messenger of God turns to Umar, smiling, and he says, "Akhir anni ya Umar." Umar, please go back. That's it. He smiled. He didn't rebuke him. He wasn't rude to him because Umar wasn't saying anything wrong. Everything Umar was saying here was the truth. And by the way, this is what we don't get. A lot of times we want to be kind, and then in our kindness, we turn to be rough on somebody else. Many of the Sahaba, they would see something wrong, they would come to the Prophet and they would say, "O Messenger of God, allow me to beat this hypocrite." He would not rebuke them because he knows what they're saying has some truth to it. He would teach them a lesson. He wouldn't say, "No, I'm going to punish you. How dare you say this and this?" He would just correct their understanding. So here he just smiled and he says basically, get back, Umar. This is not the time right now. We're not about to hold a court against this man right now. Then Umar really got passionate about it. And he started begging the Messenger of God. And he says, "Oh Messenger of God, you're going to pray and seek forgiveness for this man after God prohibited you from seeking forgiveness?" And then he started reciting a verse from the Quran, which is something that the Prophet himself received. "Istaghfir lahum aw la tastaghfir lahum in tastaghfir lahum 70 marratan falan yaghfir Allahu lahum." This is a very powerful statement. Allah tells His Messenger, seek forgiveness for them or don't do so. Even if you were to seek forgiveness for them 70 times, God will never forgive them. So then the Messenger of God sallallahu alayhi wasallam responds to Umar and he says, "Innama khayyarani Allah." God gave me an option. He says, seek forgiveness for them or don't seek forgiveness for them. فقال استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة فلن يغفر الله لهم وسأزيده على 70. He says, Allah gave me a chance, gave me a choice. Seek forgiveness for them or don't seek forgiveness for them. If you seek forgiveness for them 70 times, God will never forgive them. He says, I will seek forgiveness more than 70 times. That's the Messenger's outlook at this situation. He was still hopeful. There is a key for that, by the way. More so to honor this dead person, but it was to honor his son, his believing son, because the Prophet had care and concern about his feelings and his emotions. And that's why the Prophet taught his community something great. He says, do not curse dead people because they're going to deal with their judgment. But cursing them harms the people who are alive. Because Abdullah outlived his father. And just imagine every time the father is mentioned, they curse him. Oh, this guy was a hypocrite. How is it going to make the son feel? Even if the son realizes his father was a hypocrite, it's not going to make him feel good. So don't mention people who've passed. Just let them be. Then the Messenger ﷺ, amazingly enough, actually leads the funeral service. And he stays for a long time. And that's a sign that he was praying extra. He was basically begging his Lord to forgive this man. One person says, ما رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أطال على جنازة قط ما أطال على جنازة عبد الله بن أبي من الوقوف. I've never seen the Messenger of God stand as long as he stood on this funeral than he ever did for any funeral service. That's amazing for the head of the hypocrites, the arch enemy of Islam in Medina. When he was done with his salah, they carried the procession. The Prophet of God uncovered the face of the person who passed, and he actually the Prophet put some of his own blessed saliva in his mouth. Now, why would he do that? The reason for that is so maybe this will intercede for this person. The last thing that he leaves this life with is the saliva of the Messenger of God. He's still hoping that what? Maybe there is a chance. May Allah forgive him. And I'm even going to give him something that he can go with. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Again, this requires huge control of our egos. Most of us, our egos are monsters, and we cannot let go. Number 6. Even one statement. So now when you want to look at the legal proceedings. Legally, one of the statements of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, legally, in the court of law, it would be considered treason and he would be killed for it. Even one statement. One of his actions, being close associate with the enemies of the Messenger of God, like the Jews of a particular neighborhood, Yahudu Bani Nadir, which, although the Messenger of God was in a state of war with them, he goes to them and he says to them, لَإِنْ أُخْرِجْتُمْ لَنَخْرُجَنَّ مَعَكُمْ. If you guys are driven out, I will go out with you. وَلَا نُطِيعُ فِيكُمْ أَحَدًا أَبَدًا. And I'm never going to listen to anyone who talks about you. وَإِنْ قُتِلْتُمْ لَنَنْصُرَنَّكُمْ. And if you are fought against, I will give you personal assistance and aid. He did this in a state of war. Is there greater treason than this? There is no greater treason. So in the court of law, somebody like that would definitely be punished. So the author is saying, in every type of, throughout the world, universally this would be considered the greatest of treasons and the greatest of betrayals. But now, how about you add to that treason the following things? لا تنفقوا على من عند رسول الله حتى ينفضوا. Don't spend on the people who keep the company of the Messenger of God until they leave him alone. لئن رجعنا إلى المدينة ليخرجن الأعز منها الأذل. If we are back to the city, then the most noble amongst us will kick out the most humiliated amongst us. And he's referring to the Messenger of God. We mentioned this before. The Messenger of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam pardoned him. The Messenger of God told those in his community who wanted to kill him, they said, "O Messenger of God, please give us permission to take him out physically. We'll take him out. Don't worry about that burden. We will have the liability. But we can't stand this guy doing what he's doing." He did not allow them to do that. One of them was Umar ibn al-Khattab, the man that we just mentioned in the funeral. He says, "Ya Rasulullah, da'ni adribu unuqa hadha al-munafiq." Allow me to strike the neck of this hypocrite, which means let me kill him. Basically, I've had enough with him. And then the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Da'hu, leave him be." Why? So this is key. Why would the Messenger of God allow someone who is so toxic, so negative, so offensive, so rude? I mean, this guy's track record is extremely terrible. But there is reasons for that. This is called wisdom in how we deal with our internal issues and how the believers should behave. Number one, you think the news of his killing is not going to spread? Of course it's going to spread. And they're never going to show the real reason why he was killed. This is typical. What is going to be said? People are going to interpret it in different ways. They're going to misconstrue the situation. And this would be a cause for people to actually not look into the message of the Prophet ﷺ. His biggest concern ﷺ, throughout his life was the image of Islam. And for that image not to be tainted by anything. Because if you're a messenger, you want to allow people and give them the opportunity to just look at the message and accept it or reject it for what it is without any outside influences. That's why, again, when Allah chose messengers, He did not choose messengers with handicaps. No offense to people who have handicaps. But He didn't want people to do what? Disregard the message and say, God didn't find anybody else except this blind man. God did not find anybody else except this person who's a cripple. So Allah's not going to give an excuse. This doesn't mean you can't be righteous if you have these handicaps. You could be righteous, you could be close to God, nothing wrong with that. But Allah teaches us a lesson. Don't give people an excuse to reject the message of truth. Sometimes we're saying the truth, but we're rude. And what does that do? People are going to say, you're rude. But no, you have to listen to my words. I was saying the truth. They already blocked you. Once you started speaking in an ill fashion, they don't want to listen to you. Same thing in our families. You give instructions to your household. Give instructions to your children. And the children don't follow along. Why is that the case? Is it because they don't respect you? They do, but you have hurt them in the process that they're not necessarily going to listen to what you have to say. The Messenger ﷺ says the following things. So these are different quotes in different occasions. لا يتحدث الناس أن محمدا يقتل أصحابه. I do not wish for people to say that Muhammad kills his associates. I don't want that to be said. This is not something that I am going to accept. That's why, by the way, the enemies of Islam never mentioned that. They never said he kills people among his own community. They'll find other things, but they did not attack him on that one because he was able to protect that front. He also says, لا يتحدث الناس أن محمدا قاتل بأصحابه قاتل بأصحابه ثم قتلهم. I don't want people to say that Muhammad used his associates to fight with them and then he got rid of them after the battle. You know, this is what a lot of people do. I don't know if you've heard in human history, certain kings, they would take their army and attack their enemies. And after the battle, because they're afraid for their own well-being, who do they kill? Their own generals. Why? Because they don't want competition. So the Prophet is saying, I don't have that problem. I don't have these insecurities. Others have insecurities. In gangs, they will kill each other for what? Personal insecurity. In companies, in the workplace, they will undermine each other because of their personal insecurities. With families, sibling rivalry, they will undermine each other for personal insecurity. The Prophet had no personal insecurity, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. لا يتحدث الناس أني قد وقعت على أصحابي أقتلهم صبرا. He says, I don't want people to say that I basically locked my associates up and they died out of starvation. Because he could have done that too. If he did not kill them, he could have said, you know what, let's just put them in solitary confinement and let them die. Just don't give them food, don't give them drink, just keep them there. He did not do that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then the last reason here that the author gives is actually out of empathy for the emotions and the feelings of his believing followers from the Ansar that were related to Abdullah ibn Ubay. So always remember that, and we don't consider that. So let's say you have a Muslim here who has embraced Islam, right? And let's say this person, just for argument's sake, happens to be black, an African American. Is it okay for you to say racial jokes about non-Muslim blacks? You say, no, brother, you're okay because you're one of us. What do you think the person is going to feel? Or let's say you have a Muslim convert who's white, and then you decide to talk about all the problems with white people in their presence. What do you think they're going to feel like? Going to feel bad. The point is the Prophet ﷺ took special care for people's emotions and their well-being. So these Ansar, they were related to him. It's the same family, it's the same tribe. So he did not want to get rid of him because then it would give them insecurities. And they're like, this messenger, what is he? He came here. Did he come here to actually start killing us, or did he come here to make peace among us? Did he come here to preach the truth to us and help us to attain salvation? Because some of them, not all of them, some of the Muslims of Medina will actually take the side of the Prophet, as we saw in this dispute, but others won't. Others won't forgive it because we have a tribal mentality. Many humans have that. So sometimes somebody curses one of my racial group and I start hating them for no reason. It's like, that is me. And when you talk about him, you're talking about me. That's how humans are. So the Prophet wanted to eliminate that. I'm not going to give people an excuse to second guess their decision. And I'm not going to give Islam a bad name. And that's why one of the fruits of the Prophet's forgiveness and pardon is that the people of Abdullah ibn Ubay were the ones who would censor him. The Prophet never actually censored him publicly. It was his own people who took him to task. They would go to him and they say, this is shameful. This is unacceptable. Stop speaking this way. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ one time talks to Umar later on and he says, كيف ترى أما والله لو قتلته يوم قلت لي أقتله لأرعدت له أنوف لو أمرتها اليوم بقتله لقتلته. He tells him, oh Umar, what do you think? Remember that day when you suggested that we get rid of him? We get rid of this man? That would have upset so many people on that day. But those same people that would have been upset then are the ones willing to take him out now. And he's from among them. Now Umar was what? Another immigrant. Look how it was going to be construed. Oh, these guys are coming to take over our city. They're coming over to take our resources. Don't give that excuse to people. Be extremely wise and extremely strategic. So that's why the people who would have been angry for him in the very beginning of the Prophet's migration started being angry with this man, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, and they were the ones that were censoring him. And all of that is something called in the Prophet's method, paying special attention to benefits and harms and outweighing and balancing them out. Making sure that you don't bring harm to you and to your community. And also making sure that you're able to reconcile and bring the community together, and making sure that whenever there is differences and divisions, you're able to contain those. That was the method of the Prophet ﷺ, again with his worst enemies. May Allah guide us to be able to deal like that with our friends. The Prophet's attitude with his enemies is better than our attitude with our friends. He was able to win over their hearts. He was able to pardon them. He was able to be very strategic in dealing with them without being foolish. Because some people, what they do is they just overlook, but then they get abused over and over and over. We're not talking about accepting abuse, But if you have a greater mission, don't let the side skirmishes ruin the experience for you. Don't pick a battle when the war is bigger than that particular battle. But I must say the truth. Yes, but there is a time and a place for the truth. Be wise, be strategic. Ask Allah to guide us to be able to do that as a community with those that love us and those that hate us. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We ask you, Allah, to bless the Messenger Muhammad, to honor and compliment him, to shower him with protection and grace along with his family, his righteous followers, as he did with Ibrahim, his family and righteous followers in the past. We ask you to bless him for teaching us these beautiful lessons, this high moral character. We ask you to allow us to attain that. As the Prophet used to say, Allahumma kama ahsanta khalqi fahassin khuluqi. We also ask you, Allah, Allahumma kama ahsanta khalqana fahassin akhlaqana. We ask you, Allah, as you've perfected our creation and our mold, to also perfect our character and our manners. Allahumma a'inna ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. We ask you, Allah, to help us to remember you and to mention you at all times, to be grateful to you for all your blessings in our deeds and in our words, and to be in a state of worship to you in the most excellent of ways, in the way shown to us by your messenger Muhammad. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. We ask you, Allah, to give us the best of this life and the best of the next life, and to protect us from the fire. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min al-nifaq. We ask you, Allah, to protect us from hypocrisy. We ask you to protect us from the character traits of the hypocrites. The messenger said the character traits of a hypocrite is that when he speaks, he lies. When he promises, he breaks a promise. When he has a trust, he betrays a trust. And when he fights, he loses all filters and loses all control. So we ask you, Allah, to protect us from lying, from deception, from breaking our promises, from betraying our trusts, and from losing control and filters when we get in a dispute with others. We ask you, Allah, to guide our hearts and to protect them from diseases. And we ask you to guide us to follow the Prophet's method. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallam. Bless the Messenger Muhammad, bless his family and his righteous followers. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Allah is far above any imperfection. We testify that He's the only one deserving of worship. We seek His forgiveness and we repent to Him, and we praise Him, for He's the Lord of everything in existence.